So we have a New World patch that's about to land. It's update 3.0.3. And in this update comes some pretty big changes to combat, and some big meta shifts are about to happen. I don't really want to spend a lot of time going over the patch notes in this video, but I really want to talk about something at the end of the video that I would love to get you guys' thoughts on. It doesn't directly relate to the patch notes, but it relates to the game as a whole. Something that's been on my mind a little bit recently, and these patch notes just really highlighted the fact that this is kind of an issue in the game. So I could be completely wrong. You guys might highly disagree. So please stick around to the end of the video and let me know what you think. For now, we're going to go take a look at these patch notes just in case you guys are unaware of what's going on in New World. So New World Update 3.0.3. The downtime is going to begin at 11 p.m. PT on November the 14th. So this patch is going to be live for most people on November the 15th. There's some new skins coming in with this patch. The Turkalon event is making its way into the game. If you're interested in a full video about this, I'll make sure to link that down in the description below. But I really want to hone in on the combat changes here. This is the big deal for these patch notes. So first, we're going to take a look at artifacts. So the Scorpion Sting got nerfed. They added a trade-off to the Sting perk, which increases the cooldown by 50% upon use. The Lost Stopwatch is getting a pretty interesting change here. They're changing the duration from a 100% increase to a flat 1 second increase. They're increasing the damage reduction trade-off from 5% to 10%. So there is a trade-off happening here. But what's very interesting about this particular change is something like the bow that's coming in, the artifact bow that's making its way into the game with Season 4. It has a 0.5 second stun. So whenever they increase this by a flat 1 second, if you're using the Lost Stopwatch and utilizing the bow, you're going to have a 1.5 second stun, which is quite long for that weapon. So it'll be very interesting to see how this change actually plays out. But if this stays, I would fully expect an influx of bows in like OPR, for example. It could get a little crazy. We have Odo. They updated the functionality to include that the damage bonus applies to knocked down targets. And then we have some big changes coming in for the disease status effects. So all player diseases, they added an outgoing healing penalty to all disease status effects equal to half of the incoming healing reduction. So Plague Crits, Plague Strikes, Plague Splitting Grenade, Infected Throw, Putrefying Scream, and the PvP Arena's healing reduction. Plagued Crits, they removed health requirement. It can now be refreshed while active. That is huge for that particular perk. I think this perk is going to be so much more valuable now. And then Plague Strikes, it can now be refreshed while active as well. So a very big change coming in for the disease status effects. They're going to be very much more sought after this patch hits live. And you're probably going to want to put something like Plague Crits or Plague Strikes on your gear for PvP, especially in arenas, because there's been an influx of healers in arenas, but now maybe there won't be any healers in arenas. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So maybe not jump the gun there, but here we go. We have some big changes coming in for the disease status effects. But on top of that, we're also getting a big nerf to Shirking heals. They are increasing the cooldown from 5 seconds to 10 seconds. This is going to make this perk almost a dead perk, in my opinion. I don't know why you would put this on your gear now. 10 seconds is a very long time for the cooldown for this particular ability. And that, coupled with the disease effects, is going to make Shirking heals really hard to run. And that's something I wanted to talk about at the end of the video, is the way that all this stuff is shifting and the meta shifts in the game. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And then they're making a change to slash physical ward absorptions. So they're updating all physical ward and slash ward gems and perks to include bleed damage as a part of slash damage to function similarly to other dots. So this is bad news for me because I like to run the Butcher. I've been having a lot of fun with it. So it's getting a little bit of an inherent nerf here with this slash physical ward and absorptions update. Then they have exhaustive net shot. So they're reducing the duration from 8 seconds to 4 seconds. I still think exhaustive net shot's going to be fine. It'll still be pretty decent, but reducing the duration from 8 seconds to 4 seconds. So a pretty big nerf coming in for exhaustive net shot here. We have a few more blunderbuss nerfs happening. They're increasing the base damage by 3.75% in PvE and reducing the base damage in PvP by an additional 3.62% to keep PvP damage the same. And then the last chance passive, they're reducing from 50 to 30% fortify. So a nerf there. On a roll passive, they made it so each stack has its own unique duration. Primary fire, reduced damage coefficient from 23% per pellet to 21% per pellet. So a nerf coming in there. And then for Azov Shrapnel Blast, they reduced the damage from 50% per pellet to 45% per pellet. So Blunderbuss overall is getting a decent nerf with this update coming in on the 15th. And then here's another really big one that's causing a lot of controversy within the New World community. Splash of Light. They're reducing the radius from 100 meters to 25 meters. That is a massive nerf coming in for Splash of Light. And then the Void Gauntlet, the Void Blade is getting a little bit of a buff. They're removing the duration limit of Void Blade. It now remains active until weapon becomes inactive. They're also fixing an issue that caused several staggering attacks to not trigger the increment for the breakout dodge, and they're fixing an issue with attacks that didn't stagger but unintentionally incremented the breakout dodge. They're also making some big changes to the PvP reward track named items, so they're fixing an issue that prevented certain named PvP item upgrades. So to address, we've added new versions of the PvP reward track named items with a 5th guaranteed perk. Unlike the originals, these new named items can be upgraded at a gypsum kiln. To make it easier for adventurers to distinguish the two, the old PvP reward track named items no longer have the named tag. So a big change coming in there for the PvP reward track named items. Then there's a few changes coming in for economy, progression, and gear. These are the two big ones on the top here, I think. Disabled the ability to use secrets of the spores potions in arena PvP. I didn't know that was a thing that was happening, but apparently it was. Disable the Artemis Boon status effect when joining arena PvP instances and non-Savage Divide expeditions. So I think initially the secrets of the spores potions were intended to be used in Savage Divide and the Elysian Wild Zone with the spores and nowhere else. But I guess they were able to use them in other places. I honestly didn't know that, but now you can't do that anymore. And then they also adjusted the aptitude crates the player can purchase in the faction shop at rank 6. So these chests no longer award 2 to 3 rare tier 5 materials. They will now offer a 60 to 120 tier 52 raw materials instead. So tier 52 is basically 5.2 or tier 6. I don't know why they call it 52 or 5.2. I really don't know why they just don't say tier 6, but either way, they now offer 60 to 120 tier 5.2 raw materials instead. So those are really all of the really massive changes that are coming in, mostly lying within the combat area of the game. So you can see here that there are some big heavy-handed changes coming into the game, like Splash of Light, reducing the radius from 100 meters to 25 meters, increasing the cooldown from 5 seconds to 10 seconds on Shirking Heals, which really renders Shirking Heals almost useless or really not nearly as good as some other perks that you can put on your gear now. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't run Shirking Fortification or some other perks, especially if you're in like medium or heavy. So everyone that has invested a ton of money into getting a Shirking Hills set, well, that kind of sucks. So I kind of wanted to talk about that right now. So love it or hate it, like or love these changes, they are what they are, right? We're always going to get balance changes in the game. That's how MMOs work. Balance changes are necessary to keep the game fresh, to keep it alive, to keep meta shifting. Because if the meta stayed the same forever, it'd be incredibly boring. We went through a phase in New World for probably about 8 months where we didn't get much of anything in the way of balance. I think they were going through a new combat lead. He had left the company and they were trying to fill his shoes. So I understand there was a little bit of a lapse there, but it became very stale and very stagnant. But now what has happened is that, in my opinion, and you guys might highly disagree with me, and you can let me know in the comments below if you do. You may say, hey man, you're an idiot, that none of this is true, you're just delusional, and that's fine. You can definitely base me in the comments. But my problem now is that some of these builds that people have spent a lot of money on, and Shirking Heals is very controversial because it was definitely strong, but now it's nerfed to the point where I don't think anybody's going to run it. So you spend all of this money on your build only to have it nerfed, which this season hasn't been out for very long. So now you have no money to really switch up your build again. I feel like they're just shifting the meta too hard, too quick. So gold in New World is already incredibly hard to come by. It's very hard to make for an average player anyway. There are people that play the game hardcore. I have a lot of hours in the game and continue to play the game a whole lot. So whenever meta shifts like this happen, I can usually go get gear and switch it up and I'm fine. But I know a lot of people cannot. I also know a lot of people spend a lot of money on builds and chasing BIS. And then whenever you get to that BIS, it just gets changed 2 days later or a week later. So you've only really had a very short duration to enjoy the gear that you've worked so hard and so long to get, only for it to be nerfed into the ground. And so now you have to start all the way back over. I feel like that can be very discouraging to players. And this doesn't necessarily apply to just this Shirking Heals change. The Shirking Heals change, I think a lot of people expected this to be nerfed. So some people are saying, well, if these people shouldn't have been exploiting Shirking Hills anyway. Everybody knew a nerf was coming, so I don't feel bad for them. Well, that's okay. I get that, I guess. But we all seen some sort of nerf coming, I think, but not like this. Now it's almost useless. So they may walk back some of these changes, but I think the point that I'm trying to make here still stands. These overarching, really hard meta shifts in New World are not really that great. I feel like some of these changes are just really running off the average player who spends a lot of time trying to build up towards Abyss and grind towards Abyss, and then only for it to be smashed into the ground a little bit later for them to have to start all the way over. There is a fine line you have to walk, I think, whenever it comes to balancing an MMO and the timing between shifting metas. You have to give people time to grind for Abyss, and then you have to allow them a little bit of time to enjoy the gear that they have worked so hard to acquire. Versus what we have seen happen here recently is people are acquiring gear and then the meta completely shifts for a meta perk or a meta build or a meta armor class or whatever it may be. It just feels a little bit bad. And I've seen that complaint around and I really do agree with it. It doesn't feel good. So I hope they find a balance here between these big overarching heavy-handed adjustments. Maybe they can start easing into things a little bit more, but I hope something gives, because this, to me, these types of changes to me, this heavy-handed and this quickly are not that great. Yes, we need changes 100%. Yes, we 100% need meta shifts, but I feel like they need to be timed appropriately. And this to me just feels really bad. I don't have Shirking Heals gear. I didn't invest in any because I didn't want to run that perk. I was going for a more overarching build. So this change, none of this change right here really affects me at all, but I know it affects a whole lot of players. And I really do feel bad for you guys. Hope you stick with the New World. I hope you hang in there and wait it out, because hopefully we'll see some better changes coming in the future, or at least some more timely ones coming. But that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. Rant's over. Thank you guys for hanging out and watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate that as well. Post a lot of New World content here. And then, of course, every Monday and every single Friday, stream over on twitch.tv. And I'm starting to stream here on YouTube as well as twitch.tv/BLG, 8 o'clock a.m. CST, Twitch and YouTube every Monday, every Friday. But let me know what you guys think about these changes overall with the patch notes. Do you agree with these changes? Do you like the changes that are coming in? Because the community is very split. Some people really like the changes. Some people really hate the change. And that's just going to happen with any update, I think, because if your build gets hit, obviously you're not going to like it near as much as if your build didn't get hit. But what do you guys think, more importantly, about the frequency of these updates and how they're handling these updates with the overarching changes that basically turn meta builds or builds that people have invested into just completely obsolete within a very short amount of time? That's really what I'm interested to know. Thank you guys again for watching. I greatly appreciate it. That'll do it. We'll see you in the next one.